welcome to the Red Room. Today we are coming back to one of our favorite topics, that is modern horror TTRPGs.
And and for that we are going to discuss two games which are both modern horror games. One of them is by a publishing company that you might have heard about. It's called The Red Room.
I heard they are really good.
Yes, it's darker. And the other one is this one, Noctum. I'm going to more details about that, but first, before that, why did we choose these
Let
two?
me just say something because I was going to say that this is the expanded edition and it's really heavy. You can kill someone with this.
So why did I choose, or why did we choose these two games? Well, because obviously one of them is ours. The other one is one that we have already played a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, 5 years ago maybe, and that we particularly like. But that's not just that. There are other reasons. The reasons are about the subject matter of these games. These are both actual modern day horror games. Unlike most games that are published now in current times and even 10 years ago maybe, most of the games that are labeled as horror are not actually horror. They are dark urban fantasy. There are exceptions, of course, but it's still the majority.
And I would say especially mature or even
Yes,
contemporary.
that's even,
Contemporary.
yeah, that's even worse. So we have there's stuff like Vampire, obviously not a horror game because you're playing the monsters. Uh, but even stuff like Hunter the Reckoning and
I would say Call of Cthulhu because normally it's historical.
yes, the Call of Cthulhu is actually a horror game, but and there are obviously supplements and scenarios to play it in current days, but it's Call of Cthulhu, so it's kind of anyway. It's that one is one of the exceptions, even though it's mostly for the 1920s or other past times.
But we are talking about the spirit of old Cthulhu, not the new sanitized Cthulhu, in which you can choose your pronouns when you're playing in the
Yeah,
20 in the roaring 20s.
and that's the other problem. The very few games that are actual horror games, like Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, and a few others, those are actually horror games, but they have gone woke, or they were born woke in certain cases. And there are also a bunch of story games that are horror,
Like
not
Cult.
fantasy horror, but like what?
Like Cult.
Yeah, like Cult
Cult is a
Divinity,
story game.
and that one is a story game. So being a story, well, and it is also woke. So that one has both problems.
And almost urban fantasy, I mean, with the way they deal with humans being divine beings, I think it goes almost in the dark fantasy.
Yeah, a bit a bit like that as well. So what I'm talking about now, what we are going to talk about now is modern games like that follow in the footsteps of Cult First Edition. Cult First Edition cannot be considered a modern day game anymore because it was set in the 90s, so it's not modern day.
And the new edition fucked it up anyway.
In spite of Noctum having been written, I'm not sure, about 10 years ago, I would say it's still modern day. Things haven't changed that much. So these are, in my opinion, the two best modern horror games. Obviously, I'm biased about one of them, and that's why Sylvia is going to talk about that one. So I can.
Because Sylvia is not
You are
biased.
still biased, but less biased than I am.
Yes.
So let's start. And let's start by this one, about which I am not biased at all. And this is going to be a long thing because I'm not going to analyze rules in detail. I have game mastered Nocturne years ago, so I'm not familiar enough with the system anymore. But let's start with that. So these two games have different approaches to rules, of course. Darker is a, I would say, a, 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 OSR adjacent, let's say, or compatible game, and this one is not. This is a it's his own system. Think you can compare it kind of to the storytelling system by White Wolf. You have a dice of pools, a pool dice, not a dice of pool, a pool dice, and you roll them, and you have target numbers that you have to roll above. Uh, so you have attributes, as in most games, and skills and disadvantages, not advantages, I think. But well, if you want to know more about Noctum's rules and in more detail, we did a video about that some time ago, and I probably delved more into that part of the game. Okay, so let's start by the cover because it's the first thing that we're going to look at. It. I like this one. It's minimalist. It transmits the idea of a horror game, of a modern horror game. In this case, I think I prefer ours because
Mm-hmm.
it's an illustration. So this is good as a minimalist cover. I prefer ours. I'm going now to open the book, and it starts with something that I found very interesting and that I copied recently. It starts with a short comic book story, and I think it was a perfect introduction to the game. Uh, and we have done the same lately for several games, including Darker. Even though in the first when we released it, there was no comic book story, but now there is one.
I like it, and maybe I don't know that was the plan, but maybe we can both talk, so it'll get really tired, so we can go side by side. Maybe what I like about the comic, I think the fact that it doesn't have any text. It's really it's good at transmitting the atmosphere because you can just it's like a silent movie. I think it works really well.
Yeah, I think Twilight of Empires also has a
Hmm.
short comic without any dialogue, and it works as well. So I don't know if many games have used this kind of introduction. Usually it's a short story or something like that. In this case, Noctum has also a short story that goes throughout the book. Um, I don't do that because I'm not a writer, unlike the author of Noctum. I don't know if I mentioned, but his name is Misha L. Thomas. Um, he has published at least one book, maybe more. He's
I
working
think
on
when we talked to him, he was working on the another
yes,
one, right?
something. He's working on one or two books right now. Um, there's also in this case there's also a story, but well, since I'm not a writer or a failed writer, that's something I never wanted to be. I've decided that now instead of just writing some short texts because I never would do a story, just bits of text. Uh, an introductory comic is a better approach for that.
But in this case, we also have the fluff from Mark, and that's
Yeah,
something.
Mark is better at writing fluff than I am, of course.
But
So
that goes all over the
he did
book.
that.
And probably that's something we'll talk
Yeah,
in
in
detail
this
later.
case, it's not a story. It's just very short, very short. I wouldn't say stories because some sound like stories, others are articles, others are entries in books, others different styles of things.
And I know that a lot of people don't like it, but I do. To have this in the book to help create the setting.
Yes, I think it works. Yeah, many people in the OSR don't like that, but I think it's a it's an effective way if people can write, and I think Mark can do it, and Misha as well. I can't. Okay, so let's start by the introduction. In this case, it talks about horror, of course. The theme of the book, how to approach it, and a small introduction how the rules work. So you have how to do the checks and how to create your character. Next, character creation. I'm going to also show some of the art. In this case, there are different artists, and some are better than others. I like these ones. Even they are a bit cartoonish, but still they create the right atmosphere. It's probably the same person that did the comic. Um, so about rules, characters have aptitudes, which are what we sometimes call attributes. In this case, they are rated from poor to perfect. So from 1 to 5 points, you have attention, brains, brawn, cloud, cool, gut feeling, quickness, and reaction. So a few more than we are using, even though they aren't exactly the same names as in most OSR games. They are the same attributes.
Mhm.
In this case, we have several secondary aptitudes like defense, which is more or less the same thing as in our case. Defense is the same as armor class. Hit points, mentality, which obviously is what explains how you resist when you are confronted with horror and violence and all that, and essence. And you have skills, obviously, as in most games, and also stereotypes, which is basically the same thing we call archetypes. In this case, it's not really part of the rules; it's just a recommendation. We actually do that as well. Recommendation of skills, and in this case, skills trainings. Trainings are like sub skills. Weaknesses. In this case, there are no advantages. Characters have weaknesses, but not advantages. Which, being a horror game, makes sense. And so you have several examples of characters. I'm going to cite some of them. Governmental agent, paranormal investigator, soldier, book detective, profiler, horror writer, psychic. So the usual stuff. Weaknesses cover the same things that usually merits and flaws and advantages and disadvantages cover in games, usually in horror games mostly, sometimes in science fiction games as well. So you find things here like amnesia, bigot, oh my god, bigot, defector, fanatic, flashbacks, drunk, drug addict, pathological liar, irritable, homicidal, hunted, misanthropic, well, the usual stuff. The skills, obviously, the same: athletics, close combat, computers, first aid, occult, law, investigation, search, streetwise, survival, vehicle. So this is common stuff in skill-based games. Something that I also like that this has here: reports that look like real reports about crimes and all that kind of thing. Another thing that I think is very useful here is this part here where it talks about forensics
Mhm.
in detail. So you have things about poisoning, fingerprints, wounds, crime scenes, how to handle with that, profiling as well. So types of profiles: organized, disorganized, visionary killers, hate killers, lust killers, sexual sadists. This is inside the characterization chapter, but or at least immediately after it. But it's basically information for the game master, and it gives you ideas how to use this in game. Do you want to cover something about
Uh,
Darker now?
well, coming back, I'm not going to go a lot about our rules because we have talked about it, and I guess if someone is going to that's going to watch the video, probably already watched us talk about Darker, and I don't want to bore them too much.
And also, you don't know the rules.
No, I know the rules, but do you want me to talk about the rules? I can. It's just, as you know, this is OSR adjacent, so we have no levels. It's a lot deadlier than the OSR game. We have, and I don't know the number by heart. One, two, three, four, five, six skills, less that we had in Ratchet, right? Attributes, yes.
Six attributes. I don't know the number of skills, but it's a little bit more than that.
It's a little bit more,
At
yes.
least
And
15.
then we have the archetypes that are, of course, like the archetypes. I know that we have more because we have here the fluff, so it takes a longer. And we have the life pets to help determine some important life events for the character. So you can still create a character completely random, more or less. Perks and drawbacks you already said we have. So some of our archetypes for our well, I love the Avenging Angel. It's one of my favorites. We have the Demon Hunter. We have the Conspiracy Theorist, the hacker, femme fatale, dream magician. We still have a lot of this one, so I'm not going to read. I mean, not like in the other in MicroRed, we need to shorter the archetypes. Here we have a lot. So I think it's really most of them are already covered. I think people when if they want to create a character, they will find a packet here.
Okay, so I've already more or less told
Yeah.
about how the rules work, so I'm not going to delve deeper into that. Um, I was looking at the combat rules because I remember there was a rule I found interesting, but I don't think it's in this game. I think it's from Cold and Dark. Cold and Dark is a horror sci-fi game by the same author, but it's more recent and the rules were streamlined. And there was something interesting about dealing with group combat,
Hmm.
simplified the way how to deal with it. Uh, it's compatible, the rules are almost the same, but it's not here. So I won't talk about it. But if you have Cold and Dark, or if you are interested in getting it, they are compatible, so you can use those rules here. Okay, now you're going to a chapter that I find particularly interesting in this game, which is called Horror: A Shock to the System. So this is very detailed. How to it might be too detailed for some people. If you like lighter rules, this might go too much into detail. But this is a horror game, so I said it's a chapter, but it's not just one chapter. So horror shock the system is introduction. So there's a fear table with different scores of fear. This goes from stuff that might happen, yells out and curses uncontrollably, and it goes up to suffers a heart attack or a coma. But there's another one. There's another chapter after this one, which is called the Broken Mind, which goes even further into how to deal with madness. So you have a list of things that can happen to the character. I don't know if this is readable, perhaps. So you have the states you can be in: peaceful, composed, uptight, anxious, worried, stressed, strained, disturbed, anguished, and tormented. Characters have psych points, which they lose when they are confronted with horror and horrific situations. And there are some information here about trying to recover and regaining those points, from hospitalization to psychoanalysis to mental disorders. Then there are information about mental disorders, medication. This is very well researched, especially the explanation how these disorders work, There's lots of details about it, useful details for using in game, for game masters and characters. There's a part of the rules which is called fight or flight. We use something like that. I think we copied this.
Yes.
Kind of. It's not the same thing. I copied the title, not
Yes,
the.
it's similar. I really liked. I remember it's one of the things. I think I asked you to look into that because that's one of the things I really liked when you were playing Noctum is when you got into the fight or flight, and it makes sense because if you are, it mimics what happens in horror games. If you're playing someone normal that can actually survive or not, but can fight until the end, you're probably not acting normal. You need to have some extra bonus. And I think in Nocturne, it helped me survive for some time. The fact that I was in
Yes.
fight mode.
So this means that when you are confronted, I'm going to read from here. When humans are confronted with real danger and fear, their instincts kick in. Adrenaline rushes through their blood, and endorphins help to diminish the pain. These reactions are a memory from times of old. The pure survival instinct lingers in our mind, ready to muster up strength and resources. So these reactions are when you are really, really under stress. You can go into a state where the character can act a little better and resist. So there are different stages when you. So as I said, this is very well detailed. So if you like more complex rules, so the stages are fight and flight. Start with the agitated, go to upset, enraged, rabid, berserk.
Yes, I remember being berserk once.
When you start in agitated, you have one bonus to attention. When you go into berserk, you have +2 to attention, +2 to brawn, +2 to cool, +2 to reaction, and you have pain reduction as well. So you see, this is a way of making the characters survive a little bit more when the situation demands it.
And I don't remember about, let's talk a bit about our fear rules, right? We have fear points. That is half of which is your
Yes, that's
panic
the
thresholds.
first.
If you
Yes.
pass, you're going to start to be penalized.
Yeah.
And it's
So
really easy to pass.
yeah, so when you confront stuff that is not necessarily supernatural, it can be just violence or extreme
A dead
violence.
body, exactly,
You
war.
you start collecting fear points. When those points reach half your wits, you start rolling on a panic table, and stuff happens.
Of course, you
Bad
can
stuff.
also lose fear points by managing, and I mean, yes, lose fear points, that's correct, by managing fear. Doing something that is calming or soothing, having someone calm you down. Well, going to the psychiatrist, of course, you're not going to do that in the middle of a, I would say in the middle of the moment. It's something that you need to do on downtime.
Okay, in this
Or
case,
engaging in familiar routine, so something resting in a safe environment, so that you can help you lose fear points.
Noctum is reversed. Instead of gaining points, you lose points. You lose your psych points, and if you lose a lot of it, you'll have. You can also regain them, of course, these psych points. But if you lose a lot of them, you will have. You can.
Yeah, I think the rules are more complex because you try to keep them simple. I think the fear rules in Nocturne are a bit but fairly more complex than ours.
Yes, it's really, even in terms of page size, it's a lot more than ours. Okay, so we covered more or less the rules. Without going into too much detail because we are covering two games, not just one. So now let's go into the setting, and I think you can start with that.
Okay, I can start with that. Well, I don't know if you want me to talk about the origin of this game a little bit, because we already did. But the idea of making darker, it was to make a modern horror game that was really modern. I mean, reflect the now. And that, of course, was something that ended up being in the drawer, not just because of Ratchet, but because we were not really willing to write an horror game about current events. That's too close to reality, right?
Yes, but yeah,
So it ended up happening as a result to the pussification of horror games like Cult. And I hate calling that one by name, but yes, it's basically, it was that one.
you can call it Divinity Lost because
Yes, Divinity Lost.
that's this name now. That's the name now.
So Darker takes place today, though you can play it, and we have done that a little bit in the past because living in a world where there were no cell phones everywhere and no internet connection is really helpful for horror. And then you don't have to. So the 90s is actually the perfect place. You don't have to find excuses for why you don't have a cell connection because you can always do that in a modern game. Just too bad. There's no power, so your cell phone doesn't work. But so this is inspired on what is happening right now. We have cults that are based on reality. For example, wait, but I would say the followers of Gaia, but I'm trying to remember. These are one of my favorites. I think everybody knows what the followers of Gaia are. It should be easy. Yes, the climate freaks. I'm trying
Now,
to remember what is the
now they are
name.
turning into Palestinian freaks as well.
Yes, well, at least Greta, she mutated. I'm trying
Probably
to figure out what is the name because I didn't mark the one from the Black Lives Matter.
it's in fact a chapter of Black Lives Matter. I can't
Okay,
remember the name, but
he has a very that's a very bad name. So Jesus, that's real. Well, we have Adena Pharma
no,
in
no,
the, that's one of
no,
my favorites. Blood
no.
and Rebellion.
Yeah, it's done.
Yes.
I came up with that. That's a
Ah,
fake.
there's a chapter. Okay, yes, the name. Okay, I was thinking it was the name of a chapter
No,
in
it's
real
the
life. That
chapter
was very
of the
good.
Black Lives Matter, but
So
the
they are Black Lives Matter terrorists. We have the day programs as a pet to Mammon because in Darker, so the really evil guys. Well, this is a bit more inspiring in cult in a way. Are the demons? I'm not saying the real world demons because I don't believe they are real, but the demons from the Bible with someone with others. Like for example, Gaia is not in the Bible, or the Devourer. That was something that I invented for Ratchet and ended up here. But so the bad, evil monsters are creatures that you don't want to find. And most of these cults are related to one of those deities.
okay. So do you want me to talk a little bit about?
Yes.
Okay, so in Noctum, I would say that this we have we'd have to compare not just to Darker, but also to Wretched Darkness because Noctum
Hmm.
is a bit of has a bit of two levels of how it works, and some of the things are closer to what we did with Wretched Darkness, and some are closer to what we did with Darker. So the supernatural in this game comes from a place called the Coil, and the Coil is a little bit like the Beyond. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's a
Although here we have the Netherworld, but it's different because the Netherworld is a
yes,
bit.
it's actually the
Yes.
Netherworld. This is not. So there are some things here that can be traced to reality and to real demons and real mythologies. For example, the Harbingers. So in the Harbingers, we find and these are the really really big guys, the bad ones. Asmodee, which
Hmm.
represents lust, Beelzebub, which represents gluttony, Mastama, which represents wrath, Shemazai, which represents pride, Mammon, which is greed, Belphegor, which is sloth, and you can immediately recognize there's Leviathan, which represents envy. Okay, so some of these are from actual mythology.
Because some of them we also have in our book.
Belphegor,
I
you have
think
Mammon.
that's in a way we can say, and I'm thinking now that Wretched Darkness, it's a little bit more inspired in Noctum, actually, the part of the mythology are more similar.
Yeah,
and Darker is more directly into cult. Although obviously Noctum was also inspired in cult.
not inspired, but it's similar in the way we deal with.
Mhm.
Even though cult has lots of stuff that is fictional, our demons are not fictional, except a small part of them.
The
Most of the
Apostles of Pain and the ones that
yes,
like others.
the smaller demons in our game in Darker are are um, are fictional. Not all of them, but a large part of them are fictional. But the real big ones are the ones that are supposed to be real. So it in that way, it even though we didn't uh, have any mentions to God here. I mean, there are mentions to God, but God is not active in this darker mythology. It will be in a supplement by Mark Brooks.
And let me put this in this video, what I just told you before, that we need to do a session talking about horror in general with Mark. Probably once he releases this.
Yeah, I think we'll have to invite him for a chat, and he will explain exactly what his idea is. Okay, so back to Noctum. So the coil is like the netherworld or the beyond, kind of, and it overlaps with the reality. So there are ways to when things happen, there are ways to open gates. Usually not because we want it, even though that's possible, but sometimes because something very violent or horrific happened. And in the coil there are several realms, and yeah, this is more comparable to the beyond, even though there are also domains in the netherworld, but I would say that these ones are closer to.
And I would say that in Darker, you really don't want to be in the netherworld. In
Yes.
which Wretched Darkness, it was more.
Yeah, the beyond is more like yeah, you could go there and like use it as a passage, and even there were even explorers of the beyond, so it's lighter. It's a lighter version. Okay, then there's another chapter called A World of Shadows, and this is
Mhm.
where Nocturne deals with more mundane stuff. This have ideas. This has lots of ideas, plot hooks, included, to deal with different kinds of horror games that are not exactly supernatural. That there may be supernatural involved, but it's not related to the coil, at least not immediately. So you have ideas to handle corporations, horrors or horrors in the corporate world, um, secret agencies, cults and sects. Uh, in each of these sections, there are examples. Political powers and serial killers, the law, the government, the countryside, mental and healthcare. Obviously, mental institutions are a good place to place horror games. Crime, and then we go into relics and glyphs. This is a chapter about stuff that you can include in your games. Several examples of artifacts and relics. There's another chapter about being possessed and how that works in the game. Being possessed by different kind of spirits. How does it change you, and how can you fix it with exorcisms? It covers curses as well, how curses have effects, and how you can fight it. And then we're going to talk about next about the mythology in the game. Do you want to say something about darker?
Let me just say because I missed because the book is so big and I didn't put a lot, so I ended up missing some of my favorite sets like Queer Ascendancy, The Graves Clinic, The United Nations. And we're not talking about cults that are actually, of course, they are not cults, they are corporations or institutions, but that underneath they are really cults. But yes, well, I already talked a little bit about the mythology. We don't talk a lot about gods. Uh, I guess in a way that since we consider ourselves agnostic, I don't think it would make sense for us to talk about gods.
Especially because I don't have
The,
that much knowledge on theology, of course, so I preferred not to go into that.
but the idea into is that people forgot God because and changed exchanged God by other types of deities. So those demons are taking the place of God in people's faith, even if they don't know they are actually adoring gods or demons. They think
Yeah,
they
in this
are
case,
the
demons.
atheists, but they actually are serving some evil powers. And I think in the mythology that is the idea. And these demons are gaining more and more power into the society, into our world.
Okay, now we have a very big chapter called minions. Okay, these are the
I remember there's a lot of strange creatures there because I remember
yeah
when we
these are the creatures that you are probably going to find and fight because these ones are. I'm not going to say that they are easier. Well, they are easier to kill. They are possible to kill, unlike the big guys, um, but they are not easy. Still not easy. They are pretty pretty dangerous. This is a carver. So these are supernatural creatures that inhabit the coil. Some of them can come into our reality.
I think in our case they would be equivalent to the apostles of pain and those lesser demons, corporal,
These are
some of them, at least the strongest ones, because we also have monsters,
yes,
the
yes.
monsters.
Well, this is a bit of both. These are kind of some of these are comparable to demons. Others are not exactly demons. They are supernatural creatures, but physical ones. Which means that you have lots of creatures to choose from to kill your player characters. Not the players, the player characters. You shouldn't kill your players. Um, now, player characters, in this case, they can be average people, absolutely common people, but they can also be gifted. This is another chapter. So the gifted can be either psychics or magicians. Now, neither are extremely powerful. Psychic, the powers psychics can have are kind of what real world psychics are supposed to have, I guess. So it's not really you're not going to fire bolts that will destroy the enemies, and magic is also not as powerful as in dark urban fantasy games. But you can do curses and those things that are well, there are rituals as in our game as well. So as you probably guess, being rituals, they take time to prepare. You have to have some tools, perhaps ingredients. So
So
it's
if a
not.
demon is chasing you, you're probably not going to get.
Yeah.
He cannot get away with the ritual. We will not have the time.
So in this in relation to this in about this part, we can say that they are kind of similar. Not the rituals and not necessarily the psychic powers or abilities, but the way it is dealt with is more or less the same what we did in Darker. So
And I think the scope, right? I mean, the scope of the power, what you can do with it.
yeah, it's more or less the same. Gives you an edge, but it's not that effective. And in certain cases, it can even get worse if you are using them, and because if you fail, you'll have consequences.
I
So
remember when we were playing that one shot with Mark, and my character was a psychic, and that didn't turn out very well for her.
yeah, well, yes, that's it. There are consequences, and if you fail, you'll have uh, you'll have issues.
Even if you don't fail, do you really want to have a mind contact with that evil demon?
Yeah, well, yes, that's a bad choice as well. Uh, well, this is, I think, the final chapter in Noctum. It's called the Storyteller. Storyteller now might have a connotation that sounds like we are talking about story games, but no, it's not. This is just a throwback to the 90s when games that were role playing games used the term storyteller, games by White Wolf. So this is not a story game at all. This is a role playing game. And this chapter talks about how to deal with role playing games and especially how to deal with horror role playing games. How to handle the ambience and plot twists and dealing with horror, dealing with investigations, which is an interesting part. Investigations are always complicated to handle because sometimes people will lose a clue or miss a clue, and sometimes that can become a problem. There's also a series of I don't know if it's here. Ah, yes, styles of play. We also cover that, but this is our different in a different way. We usually cover that as movie genres. In this case, it's not exactly, not necessarily. Some of these are so like thriller and hack and slash, more of a video game genre. Legions of Hell, Ancient Gates, Paranormal, Wicked City. So you have different ways of using the same. This is not necessarily for supernatural games only. Actually, I think it's probably better for middle ground, not exactly entirely supernatural. There may be a supernatural cause, but
I think Noctum is very good to play a thriller because I mean, in investigative game because you have the all those rules about forensic, you have the rules about how to handle investigations, but then it can be a thriller that is actually has a horror or paranormal. So your killer is not a person; is a demon. So you can always tie that in, and then it actually becomes horror.
yeah, and that is kind of also something that can be done with darker. Uh, in darker, there's probably always going to be something otherworldly, but sometimes, or probably most times, you will deal with the human servants, with the cultists, not with the. Though some of them have powers granted by the entities they are
Because if
worshipped.
because you're facing one of those creatures, even the smaller ones, you can probably die.
Yeah.
So it's better to just deal with the human minions. So I'm looking at our styles of play in appendix. So yes, we have based on film. So we have a filmography suggested for each type of play. We have demanding positions and Satan, giallo, of course, non-exploitation, gore, cannibals and zombies, gothic horror. Although we have a game just for gothic horror, investigative horror, slasher, surreal horror, vampires, science fiction, thriller.
Okay, so before we end this, let's talk about what is important and what is more important about these two games and how
They don't have safety tools and they're not
exactly.
political correct.
That's
They are
that's
mature games
that's
for mature players. I
exactly.
know you
So
wanted to say that yourself, but
yeah, well, No problem. I have other things to say about this as well. That's not just it, but it starts with that. Um, you won't find here any references to politically correct stuff and how to pander to
Be
your.
careful not to trigger your players. Yeah.
So that's not something that has worried the authors of this game, and it doesn't worry us as well. The other thing, they are mature games in terms of ambience and subjects. You have descriptions of mental illness without saying sorry for doing it. uh, Gaining or being gaining because you've met the supernatural or extreme violence, gaining mental afflictions because of that, or even starting with a character that is already a nutcase, will have consequences. It's a disadvantage for your character, and that's not good, obviously. And you are supposed to roleplay it, and you don't have to be a nutcase yourself to roleplay a nutcase. You are authorized by these two games to play nutcases, even if you are not an insane person yourself.
Mhm.
What else is so the way the horror parts of the games are addressed? Extreme violence, gore sometimes if needed, fear and panic and all that. It's all covered. Not exactly the same way, but with the same degree of maturity.
But I would say in a way, and I think it's the same for Noctum. Also, it can depend on how. I mean, we have some. We talked about this recently because sometimes you have in a film or even in a modern horror game, you have a description of horror that is very detailed and I would say gory or very gratuitous. You have orgies in the middle of corpses, but it sounds a bit fake. What you mean? I mean plastic. You need to have some grittiness to it. You're not just going to describe something. So it's like those. You remind me those TV shows and horror movies now that have that habit of having a gruesome scene with a very happy music.
Yeah, like a video clip.
So yes, like a video clip, it makes it a bit plastic. So this is not supposed to be a plastic, and you should have.
No,
But
well,
if it's plastic, it's really not going to scare your players.
the cover says it all:
Yes.
blood and wires, barbed wires. So we handle horror and insanity the same way. Not the supernatural. This is mostly the supernatural here. The description of the supernatural here is mostly fictional, so closer to Wretched Darkness, where we have the Beyond and all that. So it's closer. Darker is more realistic in terms of, so it's we didn't come up with the powerful beings, and even some of the less powerful ones are stuff that's described by real occultists and demonologists. So there's a difference there, but
It's
that's just
inspiring.
a
In our
yeah.
case, it's inspiring real world. Some of the things happening in real world. So I do hope that a part of it is fictional, and
Yes,
that
well,
not everybody's a cultist. You
it's
never
probably
know.
I would say that it's probably mostly fictional, but it's not fictional. It's not something that we came up with. It's
Yes,
fiction.
it was inspiring also in those
Fiction
conspiracy theories
that
everywhere.
is, but some of the fiction is comes from if it is fiction, comes from religion, so it's not considered fiction by everybody, uh, unlike the Beyond and the
No,
Coil.
I'm thinking about the fiction, about the cults. I mean
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah. Well, I guess some of that
that
is not.
they're doing. Yes, so
Yes,
we never
some of
know.
those probably they are not cases, and they are really worshipping Moloch or something like that.
Or at least they think they are.
So another thing that both games do well is to include plot hooks and
Mhm.
ideas throughout all the game in different ways. So in mechanic mechanical way. So there are actual plot hooks in both games, and there are also in the case of Darker, Mark Brooks's dark corners, which are
Mhm.
those pages where you have
And
stuff that's
here you have an adventure that you can use to start
yes. I
that
don't
I
think
wrote. So it sucks.
I don't think this one has an introductory adventure. It's possible that the free version has one. I don't remember that.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
I'm not sure. So there, I'll put the links for Noctum. It's from Drive-Thru, of course, but I'll have to link it there. It's not anywhere else. So there's this version which can be purchased in paper format, print on demand, or digital, and there's a quick start, a very large quick start, almost a full game, which has a
Another
simplified.
another thing that we have that I like, and I probably not cannot be readable, is quotes. The, that we've been called pseudo intellectuals because of that by pseudo intellectuals, but that's fine.
Well, maybe it might sound a little bit like that, but I like quotes. I
Yeah,
like quotes.
me too.
I'm not sure if Misha likes quotes. Probably not. I don't know. Maybe he likes quotes, but
I think it's the
I don't think
nature.
there are quotes here.
It shows that we are readers. That's why we like to have quotes introducing. Readers like quotes.
Are we forgetting something?
And
Or am I?
yes, I want to say
Yes.
something about Darker. Is that I was trying to be because of course I'm also biased, even if I hadn't contributed to the book you wrote it. But when I start to forget that and I start reading it, it happens with the others. Like, oh, he's really good. I cannot believe we made this. So if we hadn't made it, I probably would think it was even better.
Probably, maybe, yeah, it's possible. Another thing that I like about this is also the layout. It's interesting. There's only one problem with the book version. Um, this is a how's it called? Lightning something. The drive-through printers. They aren't
Mhm.
good, and so the quality is kind of well, could be better. If it was from Lulu, this would look much better. But that's what we get. But it looks cool. Uh, that's the paper quality and all that. And even
Mhm.
the print quality is much better from Lulu than from Drive-Thru. The art here is, as I said before, sometimes a bit cartoonish, but cartoonish in a scary way, like this here.
Mhm.
There are some other art pieces that are not cartoonish. Uh, Let me check one of those if I find one. Well, most of them are by this artist, I think, or perhaps more than one artist, but they have similar styles. Okay, these are not. These are the uncartoonish ones.
Mhm.
These look a little bit like White Wolf art. I don't know if that was meant to be or just happened, but they look a little bit like that. Okay, so again, going back to the beginning, I would say that these two are the best horror games, modern horror games that you can find. Noctum and Darker. Um, I will explain again if you jump to the end why I'm saying this. One of the reasons is because I'm biased and I like Darker because I wrote it. The other reason is because I like Noctum. I didn't write it, but it influenced me a lot when when I did Darker and also Wretched Darkness.
Mhm.
And the other reason is because most games that advertise themselves as horror are actually dark urban fantasy. So those I'm not even competing with those. Those are a different style, different genre. And a lot of the horror games are woke. So they can't. In this case, they can't compete. Okay, so they are horror, but they are woke. So fuck it. The other reason is some of the games are also story games, and so
Mhm.
they are not role playing games. So when I say that these two are the best, actually, it's not saying much. We are not competing with a lot of games. So you have.
There may be others, and then I would leave people in the challenge people in the comments to say if there know any other
Yeah,
modern
I'm sure
horror
there.
games.
I'm sure there are
I
smaller
know,
games,
but that's why I would like to know
and
what they are. Yeah,
this is arguable. Obviously, some people will say that Night Shift is a horror game. I don't think so.
I
It's
think
a
it's a dark urban fantasy game.
there's
Yeah.
several other games like that one, like let's say Dresden Files, for example. I don't know if that one is, still exists or not.
Yeah, but that one is also
It's woke as well.
Dresden
Yeah,
is a sorcerer, so that cannot be that. Urban fantasy.
there was a recent release, Secret World, inspired by inspired, no,
That's
it's
urban fantasy. Yeah.
urban fantasy. Uh,
We played the MMORPG.
yeah, um, and some of those that I believe that they might actually be horror games. They are story games, so that okay, they are horror games, but they are not horror role playing games.
Hmm.
And there are good role playing games. Still, they still exist. Usually, they are old games like Chill, Call of Cthulhu,
Hmm.
Cult First Edition, but those are not modern. They are they take place in other eras, not the 2020s or the 2010s. Like this one, well, Noctum, you can use this easily without changing anything in the 2020s. I think it was supposed to be in the 2010s, but that's irrelevant in this case. Uh, I can check when is this. I think it was made in the mid 2010s, 2015 or something like that. 2014. Okay, so it's recent enough. Um, so yeah, we're not competing with a lot of other games because they get excluded for different reasons. Still, if you want to play a modern horror game, forget about all those games that might look cool because they are very likely uh, either woke or story games or both. So recommended Noctum and Darker. Which one is best? I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
I wrote one of them, so what I can say is I prefer Darker, not because it was mine, because I used the themes that I like the most. So
You tailor to your own taste, so that
yeah,
is, of
I
course.
made it so I didn't make it. I didn't make that one for other people. I made it for myself. So yeah, it's my preference is that one. Uh, if you like OSR games, then it's probably better to get Darker.
Mhm.
If you don't like OSR games, it's probably better to get Nocturne. Um, I would say that it's the best is to get both and then
Yeah,
decide by
compare.
yourself. Yeah, buy both. Nocturne has no supplements. Actually, there's one supplement. But there's no new supplements besides that one,
Mhm.
which was published years ago. I don't think it will be. It will have any other, but well,
No.
who knows? Maybe. But it's still, even if you're not going to play it, it's still a very good source of inspiration, as it was for me. I use it as a source of inspiration for the stuff we did. So thanks, Misha Thomas, for inspiring us. And yeah, we robbed some things from you. I hope you don't mind if he watches this, of course. Um, so yeah, that's it. Anything else you would like to add?
No, I think we're almost in 1 hour, so I don't know if you want to say anything.
I said that this is going to be a
Yes, I know it's going to be a long video still.
okay. So have a nice weekend, and we'll we'll let you know about the news
I think
soon.
we need to do a short video about the news, probably.
Yes, we'll have to do that next week probably. Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.